The James Show Podcast.
If I sound funny, it's because I'm in an odd situation here. I'm just chilling in a Kroger in Midlothian. And I am just in the aisle over here. I'm by the candle, so it smells great. But Midlothian, we are in your town. We're in your backyard. Maybe you can sneak out of work. Just tell your boss, I got to go run an errand or something. Come by, say hi. And it's for a good cause. We're taking toys. I'll tell you more about that, about the toy drive. But I want to start with the top story. Is we're learning a lot more about this Afghan who was planning on blowing up something in Fort Worth. Now, the two things we're looking for that I still don't have yet, which, sorry to disappoint you, I'm disappointing myself, is the guy, when was he planning to do it, and what building was he planning to blow up? Now, for those of you, maybe you just missed yesterday, you took an extra day off, here's a pretty solid summary of the guy that was arrested last week.
Hi, Kevin. Yes, DHS spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin says just one day before the terrorist attack against the National Guard in Washington, D.C., another Afghan national who was paroled into the U.S. under Biden's Operation Allies Welcome program was arrested for threatening to blow up a building in Fort Worth. Authorities identified the suspect as Mohammed Dawood Alakoze. DHS says he's accused of posting a video of himself on TikTok indicating he was building a bomb intended for the Fort Worth area. Fox News' Brooke Taylor reports that he was arrested on Tuesday by the Texas Department of Public Safety and FBI in a coordinated law enforcement effort. Alakoze was paroled into the U.S. in September of 2022. He had been admitted as a lawful permanent resident. Also this week, President Trump called for a reform of the country's immigration vetting process following the attack on the National Guard troops on Wednesday, which involved a suspect who was also paroled into the U.S. under Biden's Operation Allies Welcome program.
Okay, so the rest of the setup here is in response to that. Donald Trump said he's going to pause some refugee settlement from 13 suspicious third world countries. And there seems to be some good rationale behind it. I mean, if you're trying to do a background check on someone coming from Afghanistan, you're asking the Taliban and you're just trusting them. Yeah, just taking them at their word. On the honor system, the Taliban, really, those guys? So it's kind of a dicey proposition trying to learn who some of these guys are. I understand. I think you understand. Some people are pretending to not understand. But you saw it and I saw it last week. 2 terror attacks on consecutive days from 2 guys that are from the same country that came here within the same little 1 to 2 month span after the withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. That's a heck of a coincidence. And whenever you see something repeating over and over, Miss Rachel teaches us that's a pattern.
It's a pattern. It's a pattern.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. All right, so that we have the pattern established. Now, what are we going to do about it? All right, how about we just pause, figure out what the heck, if we can do something about it. In the meantime, let's stop the guys that are trying to blow things up. But, okay, now here's what we've learned since then in the last 21 hours since the James Show got off the air yesterday. The FBI actually released a statement, and, okay, we learned a little bit more, but not a whole lot more. I'm getting conflicting reports about the dude's age. I've seen him reported to be 29, 30, and 33, so that one's not settled yet. One thing we learned from the FBI report that he was actually residing in Fort Worth. So the other Afghan guy drove all the way from Washington State to D.C. to squeeze off a few rounds at our National Guard. This is a guy who wasn't going to make a trip. He was already in Fort Worth, so I guess he was just doing that out of convenience. You know what? You didn't want to go all the way to Arlington to blow something up. But also, remember the guys that were shooting up or attempting to shoot up the Prophet Muhammad cartoon contest that happened in Garland? Didn't they drive in all the way from like Phoenix or Tucson or Arizona or something like that? So this was a guy who, I guess he's not into the whole commuting when it comes to your terror attacks. He was going for the, I don't know, convenience. But we also know that it was a video call that he had with 2 other guys, and it was posted to TikTok, X, and Facebook. Something else we learned is he was speaking Dari. That's a language from Afghanistan. I think, Garrett, don't you know Dari? No, you don't? Okay, I was just checking on that one. I thought maybe you did. So so he's talking with 2 other dudes in the Dari language. I know this isn't like changing your mind about the story here. I'm just sharing the new stuff that we know. Here's another new piece of information that kind of fills out the story. he was threatening to conduct a suicide attack, which is different than a bombing. You know, Timothy McVeigh dropped his bomb off and then left. The guy in Norway dropped his bomb off and left. You know, and you see it go both ways. The guy that tried to blow up that bomb in Times Square back in, I think it was 2011 or so, he had dropped the bomb off and left. But quite often, these guys like to take themselves with the bomb. I never understood that. Like, it makes sense if you're in, like, a war zone and bullets are flying and it's like, well, this is the only way we can get in there. Someone's going to have to make a sacrifice. But in these other, like, suicide bombing attempts, like, you could have easily lived. You could drop it off and walk away. So, like the Boston Marathon bombing, what those guys did. But he was planning on, I don't know, standing over the bomb until it went off like an idiot. There was some screenshots that were released from the video call. So we know a little bit more about the type of bomb he was going to make. It was going to be in some particular yellow cooking oil container that the Taliban is known to have used in Afghanistan quite often. So they shared some screenshots, and the social media post was November 23rd. So there's your new information on what was actually in the call and what his plans were. I still don't know the two things that I really want to know. What building was it? If he had one specifically picked out. And what was the date on it? How close were we to this? Was this something that was supposed to happen by now? Was this something that didn't have a date? He was just kind of talking concepts in the future? Because, I mean, that sort of should change people's minds on this somewhat. But coming up next, you're going to hear a couple of guys, two of the most notorious rhinos from the Texas delegation, and their connection to this Afghan refugee program. And you're not going to be too happy with what you hear. So we're going to put two guys on blast. I'll tell you who it is. John Cornyn, Dan Crenshaw. They're going to be put on blast next. But, hey, we're live at the Kroger in Midlothian because there are partners in the 38th annual Cumulus Kids Toy Drive, holiday special time of year for all of us. Let's make sure some kids that are less fortunate than us are not forgotten. This is angels at work here, making sure these kids, many of whom stay in shelters and group homes, they don't have someone to buy a toy for them. You could be that somebody. You'll never meet them. You'll never get a thank you. But you're making the world a better place, and you're helping us do it. So if you can, come drop off a toy. I'll be here till 5. I think the crew will be here till 7, accepting toys. But if you can't make it here, can you make it to a Sandpack Auto location? If you can't make it to a Sandpack Auto location, can you make a monetary donation? Go to WBAP.com. There's a link at the top of the screen. You can use our free mobile app, or you can text the word KIDS to 800-288-9227. Text KIDS, K-I-D-S, to 800-288-9227. And if you're ever wondering how you can make an impact in this world, this is how you do it this holiday season. In the aftermath of the Fort Worth terror plot being unraveled, the FBI released a little bit more information that they found, and then the beautiful internet ninjas did their dirty work, started digging around, and I think you're going to be very interested in what these people have found. In reporting from the Dallas Express, they say that back in June 2021, your senator from the great state of Texas, John Cornyn, co-introduced the Hope for Afghan Civs Act. CIV, Special Immigrant Visa applicants are called CIVs, S-I-V. Alongside, it was a bipartisan piece of legislation that he co-introduced with Senator Alex Padilla of California. Oh, no, not California. No, God, no, because there ain't anything worse than... The legislation authorized the Department of State and Homeland Security to waive the required pre-arrival medical exam for qualifying Afghan CIV applicants, special immigrant visa applicants. So John Cornyn was one of the people putting in the express lane for the Afghan refugees. I wonder if John Cornyn's bill, I wonder if John Cornyn's policy preference, his bipartisan reaching across the aisle, work with the California senator. I wonder if that's what allowed these two guys to come in. The guy who shot at the National Guard last week, the guy who was arrested in Fort Worth last week. Did he kind of grease those treads? And then, rhino number 2, Dan Crenshaw, congressman out of the Houston area, also in June 2021. There was a letter that he co-signed with Democrat Representative Sylvia Garcia. Now, she's from Texas, so at least she's not from California. But they were urging Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas and Secretary of State Antony Blinken to immediately begin the process of reviewing the special immigrant visa program to address delays. Hey, we're not bringing these people here fast enough. I don't care if you're having trouble vetting them. I don't care if you're having trouble finding their records. I don't care if they don't have fingerprints or birth certificates or any sort of ID. We just got to get them in here. Yikes. So that's two guys from the Republican Party, from Texas, doing things that their constituents probably don't agree with, probably wouldn't have signed off on. And it seems to be, like, we don't know, but at least that in spirit, they were the guys that were helping these terrorists get here. They couldn't get them here fast enough. They were complaining, hey, can we get these guys here faster? Which guys? Now we know. Two of them at least are terrorists. Are all of them terrorists? Of course not. But the fact that, we didn't do any vetting whatsoever means we're going to miss 100% of the terrorists. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Yeah, you miss 100% of the terrorists you don't vet. And Tom Homan, he was making some good points on this. He's your border czar, and he was in the media a couple days ago saying, listen, over the weekend, you just can't vet people from the third world.
People need to understand, during the 4 years to Biden, I was on Fox News every day saying, it's the biggest national security failure in the history of the nation, and we're going to pay the price. Because even though Secretary Mayorkas says everybody's property vetted, they weren't. Even his own DHS Inspector General came out with a report and said there's multiple failures in the vetting process. And here's what people need to understand. In these third world nations, they don't have systems like we do. So a lot of these Afghanistans, when they did get here and get vetted, they had no identification at all. Not a single travel document, not one piece of identification. And we're going to count on the people that run Afghanistan, the Taliban, to provide us any information who the bad guys were or who the good guys are? Certainly not. And many people need to understand that most terrorists in this world, most of them, aren't in any database, because unless they were found on a battlefield by DOD when the retina scan and did some biometrics there, unless you're part of a T3 undercover investigation, we don't know who they are. So, in the same thing with illegal aliens, over 10 million that came across the border in Joe Biden. There's no way to vet these people. You think El Salvador or Turkey or Sudan or any of these countries have the databases or system checks that we have? Do you think the government of China, Russia, Turkey, you think they're going to share that data with us even if they did have it? There's no way to clearly vet these people, 100% that they're safe to come to this country from these third world nations. President Trump's doing the right thing, reviewing every one of these people that came under the Biden administration and drilling down on them. I really, truly think that most of them are going to end up being deported because we're not going to be able to properly vet them.
Well, and I hope he's right. But the big problem we have now is the softies out there. If you're soft on border enforcement, you're going to let a lot of these guys in. If you're soft on vetting the safety net, the process by which we vet these people, you're not going to get any of them. If they're already here and they're committing low-level crimes and you don't actually crack down on them and you don't punish them and you don't put them in jail, you don't deport them, it's going to escalate. And we see this happening locally. It was just announced that the DA in Dallas is not going to seek the death penalty on the illegal immigrant who came here and was granted asylum, not so he wouldn't have to go back to evil old Cuba. And he ended up cutting off the head of his boss that was running the motel in East Dallas. What was that, just like a month or two ago? Yeah, so let me get this straight. Sawing off somebody's head and kicking it like a soccer ball in front of his wife and children isn't a bad enough crime to seek the death penalty. What exactly crime would have to be committed that this guy was being, Lord, that's bad enough, we need to seek the death penalty as well? Like, what more can you do besides saw someone off somebody's head in front of their wife and kids? Isn't that pretty much the most evil, horrifying, extreme murder you've heard of in Dallas this week? I mean, this year, maybe even in your life. So, yeah, there's where your problem is. These softies here. Now, they want to crack down on you for something white Democrats did in 1863, but we don't want to hold these guys accountable for chopping off heads and kicking it in the parking lot in front of his family. Yeah, makes great sense. What could possibly go wrong? But I am just floored that the Dallas DA has announced that he will not seek the death penalty for the illegal alien that chopped off his boss's head in front of his wife and kids. Then he kicked it in the parking lot like a soccer ball in front of more horrified people, picked it up by the hair, chucked it in the dumpster. Now, even the most weak-willed, scaredy cat, weenie prosecutor should look at that and say, well, that's definitely worthy of the death penalty. But to look at that and say, go ahead and say right off the bat, I will not seek the death penalty, then you're just anti-death penalty. Then what's the point of having the death penalty? And then what's the point of having a DA that's not even going to enforce the law that the people of Texas have voted and put in place? What is the point of that? Also, think about what message does this send to the rest of the world? Oh, no, I don't want to say the world. I know you're not ever going to illegally immigrate somewhere, continuously break the laws, evade deportation, evade prison, and then go on a beheading spree. I know that doesn't apply to you. But these soft on crime policies is something that you could look at the guy or the woman that got burned on the train in Chicago. What was that, just like 2 weeks ago? You could look at the repeat offenders, the guy that stabbed the lady on the train in Charlotte, the other illegal immigrant that was a repeat offender that burned the other woman to death on a train in the Bronx or Brooklyn or wherever that was, somewhere in New York. You have these repeat offenders, people who shouldn't be out at all. And why? Because people have sympathy for criminals. People feel sorry for criminals. Oh, James, you got to have empathy. You don't have any empathy. You got to put yourself in their shoes. It's not fair. It's the system. No. Sympathy for the criminal is cruelty to their victims. Empathy for the criminal is punishment to their victims. I care more about the victims than the criminals. Now, as a good Christian, I can forgive him. I can give him a second chance. I can hope he improves himself. But all that's going to happen from at least behind bars in a jail cell. If not, he has a few minutes to do it before we throw him into the nearest wood chipper, feet first. I'll give him a second. If he wants to get right with God, he has a chance to say a prayer. But then right after that, execution. If not for this guy, I would like to... Hey, Garrett, not you, Garrett, other Garrett, will you see if you can get the Dallas DA to come on the show? I want to ask him, is there any scenario in which he can envision using the death penalty, seeking the death penalty? And, if that answer is no, then what the hell are you doing being a prosecutor? What do you... Go be a prosecutor in Vermont. How about that? This is Texas. We don't play patty cakes with our criminals. And this is why we have a better run of it. This is why when you see the stories every year about what's the murder capital of the world, they ask, well, is it Detroit? Is it Baltimore? Is it New Orleans? Is it any number of these other cities? It's never a Texas city. Maybe rarely a Texas city. I don't know if never is the appropriate word. But we don't have the killing fields like they have in Chicago, where in San Antonio. We don't have that in Dallas. We definitely don't have it in Fort Worth. Hell, in Fort Worth, they're handing out 340 tickets in 1 week for panhandling, which some people won't seek the death penalty for chopping off heads. This is how light they are on law enforcement. Fort Worth, you got to love that. They're dropping the hammer on all these laws. And that's the dastardly thing about laws. If you're going to be a nation of laws, you don't get to selectively pursue and enforce them. That's not a just system. You have all these laws, and most of the time you just let people slide, and you selectively decide when you're going to give someone a ticket for panhandling. How much panhandling would there be if every time a cop saw panhandling, he actually enforced the law as it was written? I know what the answer would be: zero. You would have zero panhandling. And it really is that easy to fix that one ugly aspect. And then they're going to come on the news the next day and be like, we've got to revitalize downtown. People are leaving in droves. Companies are getting out here. They're thinking, AT&T's thinking about moving their headquarters out here. What can we do? We need to spend a whole bunch of money. We need to spend $2 billion to renovate the convention center. No, just enforce the laws. Just enforce the most basic. These aren't complex laws. You don't have to know differential calculus to decide when someone is panhandling or being a vagrant or some homeless guy is whizzing on a statue. Enforce the damn laws. And if we can't even get the Dallas DA to seek the death penalty on the head chop-off guy, we have a huge problem, and that guy needs to go. And don't worry, I will remember the next time there's a local election and this guy's up on the ballot. I'm going to remind you of this story. But you can also join us tomorrow. We're doing the Kids Toy Drive at a different Kroger. This is going to be at the Kroger in Plano at Coit and 121. Now, the WBAP morning show is going to be out there doing only their second remote broadcast of 2025. They'll be there from 5 to 9, accepting new unwrapped toys. And monetary donations are always welcome, but you don't have to do those in person. You can either text KIDS to 800-288-9227. It's the same phone number you used to call in. You can go to WBAP.com and follow the link. There's also the link on our absolutely free mobile app. So during the hours of 8 in the morning to 5 p.m., you can stop off and donate a toy. If you do it specifically between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. and 5 p.m., sort of adjacent to their rush hours, you can receive a Kroger gift card while supplies last. This is all thanks to big thank you to Kroger, big thank you to Dan Harker and the Empower Home team, and of course Cumulus, our boss, is here for putting us all together, cracking the whip, and making us do this for you. I mean, you don't have to talk us into it very much, but help us make Christmas magic for some unlucky kid out there. Now, this is what it sounds like, and I don't speak Dari, you don't speak Dari, but...
سری هر کس افغان چه مشکل داشته باشه سری او انتیاری میکنم هیچ مشکل نیست در کجا هستی آدرس در کجا هستی یک دقیقه دارم ما که سبیلیت بسته که برادر آدرس در کجا هست گفتی دالاس پورت ورد انتحاری را در کجا جور میکنی بامبا انتحاری همینجا جور میکنم باز کافر هم
All right, let me translate some of this. So it looks like he's on a call with 4 other people, and you see some other people come in and dropping out. So what is this, like an open forum here? But he's talking about he's going to kill himself. He's going to do a suicide bomb. I want to kill everyone. When asked if he's ashamed to be living in Texas, Muhammad says he's only here to kill as many Americans as he can. He says, I want to kill everyone. The next guy says, okay, so are you going to build a car bomb? Good for you. Where are you going to build your yellow cab bomb? I'm going to make it here in America, in Fort Worth. You are going to build a suicide bomb inside your taxi. I am building it, brother. Can anyone help me? I'm going to kill you if you're in Dallas. I will commit suicide on anyone who has problems with the Afghans. I am going to commit suicide. I am going to kill the infidels. So, doesn't sound like he's very grateful for the wonderful state of Texas here. Doesn't sound like he's big fans of you and me. But more importantly, kind of sounds pretty incompatible with Western civilization. So, Cory Booker, are you going to fight this guy being deported too? How about we move him in next to you? How about next time you need a ride somewhere, you take this guy's cab? What could possibly go wrong? So here we have a guy. Hey, we're going to kill all the infidels. I'm going to make a bomb. We learned something about him. I guess we can infer for this. Can we all just kind of assume he's a taxi driver of some sort? And I don't know if they mean taxi like literal yellow cab taxi, or maybe he just drives an Uber or a Lyft. But now we actually have subtitles on this. This guy's bragging that he's going to build a bomb, blow up some Texans. And then, look in the comment section under this. A lot of people are showing his arrest record where he's listed as white. I know. I get it too, and it cracks me up. But I think this is where we get some of those stupid talking points that just don't make any sense. Like when Jasmine Crockett says, we know all the violence is coming from the white people, the white supremacists, the violence is coming from, how did she put that again? Violent right-wingers or something to that effect, all coming from whites. So that is funny because, I mean, if you're going to count Afghans and Middle Easterners and Syrians and Iraqis and Iranians as white, then okay, maybe you're half correct, Jasmine.
and the idea that one person can get out of line and commit such a horrific crime as shooting two National Guardsmen that never, ever asked to be here. In fact, we know the young lady that lost her life, specifically, we're saying that this is a waste of time, but now you want to go against every single immigrant. That doesn't make sense. And it's frankly not who we are, because if that's the case, let's talk about the white supremacists and how many of them need to be kicked out of this country, because I can guarantee you I can track down more crimes that they've committed, because overall immigrants have a lower crime committal rate than white supremacists. But we don't want to talk about that in this country.
I mean, the FBI has...
You know what they have a higher rate of? Sawing off people's heads. They have a higher rate than the native population of likelihood of sawing off people's heads.
The James Show Podcast.